Hello, and welcome to the Manifestor Only podcast. Today, I have 5-1 emotional manifestor, Nattie. Welcome.
Hi.
I would love it if you could start us off by introducing yourself in whatever way feels most natural to you.
The irony of that question is introducing myself feels not natural at all because no matter how I try to explain myself, it doesn't land. I am a person you need to experience to understand. Um, it's actually really funny that you asked me that because yeah, that just it is. I am. I'm one to experience. So maybe by the end of this podcast or recording, we'll might have an idea. But I'm just a mom. I'm just a mammy, and a mammy in life for my children or not, which we can get into. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a very individual person who seems to initiate people into their individuality by
Mm.
just being myself and exploring the world, And I feel like over the years I've like searched so much for my purpose and what it is, but I realize, like I've got to 35, 36. I'm a jack of all trades. Like what I do now is not going to be what I'm going to be doing in 10 years. So I just see like everything that I am and that I do is an experience. Um and you know, for some reason my life and how I in my life seems to impact massively. That still doesn't make any kind of sense to me whatsoever. So I don't really understand it yet, that aspect of it. But yeah, I'm a writer. I'm a mother. And I mean mothering as in, I mother humans, grown adults, through modeling how I mother myself. Um, it's not like counseling or therapy or trauma therapy. I've done all that, but mothering is probably the art and the heart of who I am and what I do. Um, and I do that in many ways, like creating. I like to call myself a multidimensional creator.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's what's been in my bio now for a while, and I don't really know where it came from. But when I think about like people like, what do you create? And it's like, well, I write, I paint, I draw, I do digital art and graphic design sometimes. I create some of my reels that I've created have been multidimensional in the sense that there's a visual, there's an audio and written in a poem. I mean, there's only probably maybe three of them, but the whole thing together is a creation. It's an activation. It's an initiation when you see the subtleties of all of it put together. So I don't, yeah. So that was the only word I could use to describe myself. Creative, multidimensional. Um, but I'm a teacher, I suppose, in ways people have called me a teacher, um, as well. And not that I physically teach people things, but in just how I teaches people things. I have a life path at 33, which is master teacher. And then it's kind of taken me 7 years of knowing that to actually be it. And to not even attach to that, like the attachment for somebody being like, oh, I'm master teacher. And that was my first kind of um mindset in it as well. But yeah, I am me, and I just me being me helps other people. My when she was my 7-year-old, when she was 5, she told me, she kept calling me Superwoman. And one day we all had a bit of an emotional breakdown while they were in the bath. And I took them out of the bath and we like sat down in a circle. There's two of them, 3 and 5, 4 and 6 even, sorry. And the eldest, I was like trying to explain to her, I was like, why do you keep calling me Superwoman? Because like I'm just a human being too. And she was trying to tell me I'm Superwoman. It's like I have feelings. I've got big feelings. I've got a lot of big feelings, a lot of very, very, very steep drops there, in my emotional wave. And she said, like, literally, like I was an absolute idiot. She was like, because you have night vision in the darkness and you fly up high in the big blue sky and you save people. I was like, oh, okay. So that's who I am in the words of my 6-year-old.
I love that. Oh my gosh. She sounds adorable. So you have two kids,
Yeah,
and your oldest is
just
6?
just turned 7, and the youngest just turned 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I know because we've talked a little bit before, you've had well, you are an experienced person, as in you have the 35, 36 here to experience life and all it has to bring, and also the 1156, which is also very, experiential. And would you feel comfortable talking about, life before and human design and life after human design and
Yeah.
what's been going on?
I found human design. When did I find human design? I'm probably 4 years into my experiment now. Um, so yeah, my eldest would have been about 3. And I had my birth time wrong. So for the first 2 years of my experiment, I was experimenting as a 4/6 splenic projector. 12 hours. Let this be a note. I will not run a chart now unless I have exact birth time. I will not do it. Just and one of my clients actually as well, I could say clients, but I could say children, one of my grown adult children who's older than me by 20 odd years. Um, he also had his wrong, but we were full sure he had his correct one, but he found, going through some of his parents' things, found something and he was wrong as well. Again, like the minutes really do make a difference. But yeah, 4/6 Splenic projector. And I got those 2 years I'll talk about first because that was a profound experience for me. I was going through a space of, I was very deep in my, um, awakening in my awakening. It was around 2020. So I was very loud and in that space. Um, Actually, it could have even been 2019. I found you. It was 2019. I found you in design. So actually, we're 5 years. Never mind, 5 years in. And when I heard the podcast or the recording of Raz's lecture, Projector Signature from Bitterness to Success. Oh my days. I've actually never felt so seen in my life. So for me, like that, those 2 years of projectorness was a bit of a trip because I learned so much about myself. And then by night vision in the darkness, literal full on night vision in the darkness. I found my birth time, and it was through something totally different that I ended up becoming. And I just realized something about a story I'd been told about morning versus night times, birth times, and I was like, so I ran the next time. This was a week after I messaged a friend of mine and had a massive conversation with her about how I thought human design was crap because it's not working. The energy's not right. It's not flowing right. It's like I can see it and the energy's there, but the way that it's flowing is not correct. And I'm like, I wonder if there's like a full on matrix to distort projectors from finding their true balance so there's no harmony in the world. And I was on one about this. I'm full on. And then a week later, I find out, oh no, I run my chart instantaneously repelled by myself. Instantaneously repelled by myself. When people say that you don't understand that repelled feeling, it's like I understand that repelled feeling because I was repelled by myself instantaneously. It was one of the hardest things that I've experienced within myself, about myself, in my vision of myself, in how I saw myself. And it took me quite a while to remember that the week before I had felt it. And so actually all that showed me kind of was to trust this whole experience that I've been going through since I became a mother, the 7 year cycle for me of mother, has been to find myself, to explore myself, to be myself so that I can be a healthy mother because I can only be a healthy mother if I am me and I am healthy. And I didn't want to perpetuate that mother trauma. And I wanted to give my children something different. And I traveled the ends of the earth. And human design has been a focal part of it for me, where it gave me the language. It gave me language that I didn't have. It gave me mechanics. It gave me. I'm in the process of realizing I'm autistic. So for me, like having something mechanical and something like I've been observing in human design now for, like I said, almost 5 years. So I have a good grasp now on the pattern. I'm having a really good grasp now on the pattern. I wouldn't say I'm fully there, but understanding the pattern of myself through my not self and how I externalized the projection of myself, my projection of myself, how I externalized it, how I gave it away to so many people by internalizing it. And human design was just another way that I saw that those first 2 years, believing this mechanics, believing this language, believing this words, and then like living by it, like internalizing it as soul focused reality. I wasn't experimenting with it, if that makes
Yes.
so. Once I found out I was a manifestor and then I read Manifesto, I was like, okay, then, right. And it made so much sense. And then I went through a massive period of grief. So that before human design, I was just so unaware. It's like I was aware. I was so aware inside. However, it didn't come out. It couldn't come out. The internalization of everybody else's awareness. So, like an example, people, oh, I'm a know it all. I'm a know it all. And it's like, no, I don't know it all. I only communicate what I know. And I've always been that way. I'll only ever communicate what I know. Um, Understanding anger, my anger, has been life changing. Absolutely life changing. Understanding how people physically cannot see me. What I've learned recently is unless they have the 55. Um, but for the majority, people can't see me. And I'm a 5'1" as well. So not only can they not see me, I also have a goddamn mirror on the outside of that fucking, yeah. Well, I don't know if I can swear, but
Yes, you can swear. We
right.
swear here.
It's brilliant because that's all, yeah. So it's like, I don't know, it's just giving me a level of acceptance and self-awareness. But I'd say acceptance probably more so. It's like I've had the awareness, but the internal awareness that I had before human design, I'm allowing to come out. I'm allowing to be seen. There's an allowance of acceptance of myself that comes in action that I've had after human design. But that only came after I sat in the grief of who I was. Like I cannot tell you over the last, well, it'd be 3 years actually now that I've because it'd be 3 years that I'm experimenting as a manifester now. And I can't tell you as much times I sat on the floor and cried. I was like, I don't want to be built this way. I don't want to be closed. I don't want to be a mirror for everybody else's darkness, because then that means all I experience is everybody else's darkness projected at me consistently all of the time. And I used to cry literally in the fetal position, being like, why me? Like, why me? The closest people to me all leaving me because of my mechanics. And yes, they were not self mechanics because I didn't have awareness of them, but even having awareness of them and being able to communicate that to people, those people not having awareness and not caring or trusting it, the projections still, but over time, I've learned that the projections are my responsibility.
How so?
Because I'm aware of them, right? So someone can only project something upon me if I accept the projection.
Hallelujah.
So I'm like, and then and you know how I learned this was literally being in all of the human design groups in Facebook, especially the heretic group, and it being like, I'm so fed up of being burnt at the stake and this anger and frustration and bitterness and disappointment at projections. And I'm like, I get it, but it made me uncomfortable because it was that was reflecting to me like the lack of responsibility that I was then holding for the projections as well, and like if I'm feeling anger, so for me it'd be anger. If I'm feeling anger that somebody is projecting upon me, that anger is my no. My anger is my not. Yeah, you can say it's your not self, like we spoke about briefly earlier on in its externalization. When you externalize your anger and you project your anger in your not self, yes. But when we still experience anger consistently. Well, you know this. We it doesn't go away. We have situations where it just because it doesn't come out doesn't mean it's not there. And I feel this volcanic reaction and this chemical whirlpool in my body, and I'm at a place now where as soon as I acknowledge it, I'm like, right, where was my no?
Yeah. Oh,
The first thing I ask myself, where was my no? And where did I not listen to my no?
that's a beautiful reframe of anger, because I think a lot of manifestors, especially newcomers, I know I did this, and it's like, oh, anger, I can't be angry because that's my not self. And it sounds so, oh, not self. We're trying to get rid of the not self. And it's like, you're not ever fucking gonna get rid of the not self.
And it's the same with like frustration, like anger, frustration, bitterness, disappointment. It's your tool of your no. It's your not self. If you can't, your not self is not always externalized. You always will have your not self, and you will always have yourself. Both exist. They will coexist. What you action in real life is then what becomes physical. And it's like, how can I, like, generators are always going to be frustrated if they don't listen to their no.
Mhm.
Frustration is their no. Disappointment, your no. Bitterness is your no. It's like,
Yeah, and one of the things you're pointing at here is one of the things that we talked about before the podcast, and was, there were a lot of things that drew me to why I wanted to have you on here, but one of them was this radical self-responsibility.
yeah, there we go.
Right. I've for me, that was your words. I've always called it radical honesty, but I absolutely love that radical.
They're not my words, actually. They are one of my teacher's words. My teacher being Angela Gallo, formerly Angela Gallo, now Angel Phoenix Arsenal. And she was what started. She was a manifest 5-1 emotional manifest man I believe. Don't quote me on her design, but she created. I started following her when I was pregnant, and she was birth in my brain, my memory through my story. She was a birth photographer, and then through following her, I learned she was a doula. And then when my daughter was 6 months old, she announced she was doing this doula training, and I was like, I am doing that. Like, that was, now I look back, that was one of like the first conscious urges that I'd had, that I followed with my body. And I was going to watch a webinar back in the days of webinars, watching a webinar on her, on this course, and someone asked, I almost didn't watch it, but my children's father was like, just watch it, just watch it. So I watched it, and someone asked, did they have scholarships? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, I'm getting one of them. So I did. I got one of those scholarships. And then that sent me on what was supposed to be a 6-month doula training, ended up being a 3-year. We were called dynamo doulas. So that would probably, like, so her words were radical self-responsibility. She taught me those words. And, you know, the doula training ended in her almost calling herself into radical self-responsibility, because you can't teach that stuff. It's it's a process. You can, like, people will go to doula schools to work in birth and do like weekend courses without ever having looked at themselves. I've been on a 7-year long initiation of doulaing myself, so I dare doula someone else. You know, it's like it's an initiation. People just learn something and then go do it without realizing they're perpetuating the same trauma of whatever it is that's needed in it. It's just, so radical self-responsibility saw me like take what I learned there. And one of the first births I fully attended afterwards was a free birth, and the only thing that I learned in that free birth was that I shouldn't have been there, and that the safest place for a woman to give birth is by herself. Fully. I'm saying that, right, and there's going to be probably a hell of a lot of people being like, at that statement, but I have sat in that universalization of that statement to make it clearly, I only speak what's right and what is true. And in this world, in this day and age, can any woman just automatically do that? Absolutely not. There is a massive initiation. There is a massive process of internal unlearning that you would probably have to go through a whole 7-year cycle as a maiden before you became a mother to be able to do that fully. There's a process to that. I'm not saying like every single person should go and do it willy-nilly. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that if I was not there for one part of it, there was a part of this birth that I know if I wasn't there for part of it, and she was on her own and that was her initiation. She needed that space to be alone, to sit in that. In the initiation into mother is, you have to know who you are, and you can only find out who you are on your own. You can allow other people's reflections, and you can learn about yourself through all of those things, but to find it, you have to lose it. You have to lose yourself, and you have to lose yourself in the birth space to birth through the new. There's tribes in Africa that, like, a woman will like go and just into the river and give birth by herself in the river. Won't even make a sound.
I'm not a mother, so I don't have experience with birth. I have witnessed the birth of my godson, which was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had in my life. It was so humbling, so intense. I mean, and a lot of people afterwards were like, oh, well, that probably definitely scared you away from having kids. And I'm like, that's not what it was about at all. That did not scare me. It was the most gorgeous thing ever to see life come through this body and take its first fucking breath. What the hell?
Yeah. And that the birth that I attended, the free birth that I attended particularly, really had me confront even my own biases that I still had on birth and how it should go. Like the length of time between, baby crowning and baby's head being fully out was about 40 minutes. And that just would not happen in a hospital. That just wouldn't happen anywhere. And I really had to sit in that. Like that was, you know, I was getting to a point where even I was confronting my own, that that mother and that daughter, they gave me an opportunity that I can, and I know she'll probably say the exact same about me, in the space that I provided for her to be able to do that, for her, it wasn't a traumatic experience because anything that happened within that experience was her call. So the experience was exactly what it was meant to be. However, it just taught me something. It taught me about the organic intelligence of the body and how much we are not that. And ironically, a lot of people think human design probably isn't an organic intelligence. However, it gives organic intelligence. Like it is an artificial intelligence that actually gives the opportunity for organic intelligence, but only through radical self-responsibility.
This is beautiful. Okay, so you say, again, when we talked earlier, that you initiate people to themselves through mothering.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Right. Well, this has been a journey. I, everything, and I think this one of the biggest things, like like even just say with autistic human beings, there's just hyper focus on a thing, and the hyper focus on this, my thing has been mothering, massively. It has been everything. Hang on one second.
All good.
And no, my friend just came back and was just like, "Are you still on?"
Yes, we will be on for a long time, mister. Go away.
So that's great because there's loads of people living next door as well. So we have like a big family here, which I suppose I'll talk about as well once we get through it, like just community care. But unhealthy mothering is the one thing that we all experience. Like if you want to look at like why the world has all the problems that we have, even like say like the mental health epidemic or all of this, it's all back to the root source of every single disease and disease and of any kind in the world is dis-ease, and dis-ease comes from mothers. So does our anger. Every human being experiences anger, right? It's just the way that the manifestor feels anger is different. Every human being will experience frustration, but the way the generator feels frustration is different. But anger is what comes from mother, right? And if you look at all of the anger in the world, what is the not self if not that? Like you can look at disappointment, that you can be disappointed and act angry. You can be bitter and act angry. You can be frustrated and act angry. You can be angry and act angry. It's the action of how the not self comes out. It will always be perceived as anger. And if you take that back to root source, what is that if not mother? If we come from mother, like it's literally where we come from. It's where we're created inside our mothers. And, the field of epigenetics has shown that trauma travels through your DNA. And it travels through the water of the womb. So I always thought that trauma was a feeling. And through my own practice and my own development of, I know we will talk about this as well, but like my own development of emotional framework in the context of feeling, not healing, I realized that trauma is not a feeling. Trauma is an affect on the effect of the feeling. So people think emotions and feelings are the same thing, and everyone communicates about them interchangeably. However, emotion is energy in motion, and some people, like me, creates energy in motion in their body because I'm emotionally defined. Other people feel energy that is not created within their body. Some people don't create energy. They feel it. They're empathic. They feel other people's. Empath is another word for it. And another thing in the radical self-responsibility, my projector chart, I was undefined. And I then had to go through that space of where I once thought I was amplifying emotion, that I was I was actually creating it. So there was a level of responsibility that I had to go through in that, and I think when you're emotionally defined or not, you know, you have to take a level of responsibility for your expression of emotion, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
So can you remind the question so I can come back around full circle?
Initiating people through the initiating people to themselves through mothering.
So when I on my journey with epigenetics, and when I learned this, that trauma travels through the water. Emotion is water. If you look at what is energy that moves, water is that. We come from water. It's the source of everything. I realized that feelings were not the same. Feeling was your body's way. It's a name for your body's way of communicating energy in motion, emotion. So emotion is the energy that's in motion, and your feeling is how your body is communicating the energy. No matter, everybody feels, but not everybody is emotional. Okay. So that's the difference. So and this is what I've been universalizing in the context of mothers, back to basics. What do mothers do if not provide emotional health? And this is the core structure of our being is our emotional health. And that comes from mother. So if you are not feeling the energy in motion, right, it creates a blockage. And that blockage, that energetic blockage, is called fear, because fear is not an emotion. Fear is the affect on the effect of emotion. So effect on feeling. So feeling should be fluid, right? So if we're not able to feel, then we get a blockage, right? So it affects feeling. But trauma affects the effect of fear. Does this make sense to you?
A little bit, yes.
Right? This is a whole new thing I'm bringing through.
I love it.
But let's just see how many people take it and go with it, because right, I in feeling, when one day when I was triggered, right, I was having this. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about the personal life in time, but I was having this experience where I was experiencing anger, I was experiencing triggers, I was experiencing being self-harming as well, and wanting to externalize that harm. And I locked myself in my way away into my room, and I wrote 7 questions. And 7 questions that was like, what are you feeling? Where are you feeling? How are you feeling it, in various different ways, right? In my body. And I sat with the emotional wheel. And through sitting with that and sitting with that practice, I was then able to become aware of, say, how the emotion of anger was communicated through the feeling in my body. And then it was like what I thought was the emotion of fear. I didn't, it was, I'm undefined with the 48. Um, so me feeling fear, this is also mechanics in me, that I can literally feel the blockages in people's body when they allow me to. I don't do it. I don't tap in it or out now, but I can feel disease in people's body. I can feel sickness. I can feel, and it took me, like, I used to amplify that. I used to take on the sickness when I didn't know that that's what I was feeling. I used to take it on. And then depending on what trauma I was experiencing in my life, it was then affecting the fear that was already inside of me that I could feel. So then it amplified out. Does this make sense? So I experienced a lot of, yeah, it's quite night vision in the darkness. I'm just going to keep coming back to the night.
Yeah, no, and you're tapping into a lot of deep things here, and it's almost 10 p.m. over here, so I'm a little bit like trying to keep trying to keep up.
I did say natty bombs. I did.
Yes, you did. You're like, this natty bombs. It's gonna blow your brain, and I can feel that's
I'm
happening.
gonna have to listen back to this like 5 times to be like, ooh.
But that's the beauty of it, though. I really appreciate that, and I think, while I'm listening to you speak, there's a part of me that's just kind of mind blown because I know your background story
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
trauma.
Yeah.
Are you okay and comfortable talking about that?
Yeah.
Please do.
Okay. So, um, beginning, my father had what is now known as factitious disorder, but it's Munchausen by proxy, back in the day. So basically he harmed me by poisoning my milk bottles from like 4 weeks old, with salt, um, to gain medical attention. Uh, I ended up in foster care for 3 years before I was returned to my mother. I'm going to just say this very briefly and placidly because I'm just at that stage now. And then I experienced sexual abuse, by my stepfather, another stepfather. And then he was gone, and then we had another one. And this bit's a bit hard to talk about because they're still very much present and not present for me, but like, I remember at 16 him saying either she leaves or I do, and I left. And I'm not there all these years later, and he is. So it's not, I'm consistently projected upon that I am blaming everything on my trauma and blaming everything on everybody else. But I'm the person who's not seen, misclosed aura, very autistically closed aura, the person over here, 5'1" mirror for everybody else. I'm not saying this lightly, like when I began to speak out about my trauma and my story, I was threatened with legal action, and I haven't spoken to, like when I do try, the last time I tried, where I sent my mother a voice note, and I just said I can't wait until my mother dies before I use my voice. Um, I can't give that to my children. And in order for me to break that chain, I need to do this. I need to speak, and to speak as if you were not here, but with you here. In a way, I didn't use those words, but that was where I was coming from with it. And one of the things I said to her was like, I just don't understand how you're like, she can go drilled, trusting myself, following my intuition and telling the goddamn truth into me, like full on can go drilled it. But then as soon as I did, it almost, that's when the full scale of projections kind of happened, in a way. Um, I moved out at 16. Um, Boyfriend after boyfriend used sex as a way of trying to feel loved, but I totally open sacred over here. So, like, yeah, you can imagine how unhealthy that was. I got groomed for sex work in the process of that. And that was the first secret I ever told on Instagram, actually, years and years and years ago. And during Dynamo Doula training, that was because of Dynamo Doula training. Like, this was the level of how we doulaed each other. We learned through experiencing of dueling ourselves, like getting on. I got online and shared that bloody story after watching somebody else share. She was like, I'm going to go out on the live and share a secret. And I was like, yes, go on. And her secret was the same as mine. And I was like, no, I'm going to have to get online share. But yeah, worked in sex work, going for sex work. Got out of that when I met my children's father. Um, and I moved country firm after knowing him for 3 days. Um, Ended up pregnant a year later. Not really aware of the abusive situation that I was in emotionally and psychologically. And then once I had fallen pregnant with Eska and the baby, and she came along, then that was that. Um, I wrote my birth story recently. The irony being that I only share my birth story 7 years after the birth is is not lost on me. But yeah, it was very harrowing. And then, after that story, I do want to share the next part of it in writing, which I will, of like leaving where we were, going to live close to his family, the abuse I experienced in that, the times I tried to kill myself when my daughter was 9 months old, um, the crazy lady in full force, the I knew that I always knew that the way that I was doing things was not right. And I went mental in the process. Or well, I thought it was mental. Well, now I just realized I was so emotionally, like at the time where I sat and wrote that trigger awareness um questions for myself, I'd been hitting my kid's dad for like 3 months. And I felt so guilty for doing that I did everything in my power to not do it. And then I end up self-harming myself. I end up hitting myself then for further 18 months instead. Um, but I realized I was like so emotionally and psychologically abused. I had to physically defend myself from it. Like I'm giving birth to his child and he's screaming at me because he wants to have a bloody shower. As if I can in some way stop nature, you know? Yeah, like, but it kind of just goes to show his, like, he believes that he can. Like, you think that you can not come home when when I'm giving birth to your child, and I suppose anyone listening, if you want to read the story, just so it makes a bit more sense. It was quite a traumatic experience. But there's been so many, we'll just not overload. And then when I found out I was pregnant with the second one, after like the depths of it, I'd stopped hitting him. I'd start getting into doing like I'd start doing really well. Then I found out I was pregnant. And even in that, I found out I thought I was 7 weeks along. I'd actually had a period. I was 13 weeks along. And I only found out after going to the hospital because I had gushed blood on a bus, like proper, had a big bloody accident, gush on the bus after he made me walk home when I rang him because I was spawn. He made me go on the bus home. He wouldn't come pick me up. I rang him, said I was spawn. He wouldn't pick me up. So I had to get the bus home. And when I stood up, I had this gush of blood. And I had to walk like 500 meters down the road on a very busy main road with foot just covered in blood. I went to the hospital and I prayed she got because I knew I just couldn't do it again. I could not do it again. He promised me he'd be different. He promised me, and I just agreed to keep the baby. Like, he promised me he'd be different. He'd do everything different and blah, blah, blah. And I could not have an abortion because, God forbid, I take what all his dreams and shit away. And then when this happened a few days later, I prayed for 3 days. But she gone. And she did not go. And not only had she not gone, she was a 13-week-old baby and she was too far along for me to even consider doing anything about it then. So then I just had to accept it. So I thought, right, well, I'm going home. I'm going home to my friends, I'm going home to my family. And, I found a police report in my medical records recently, last year, that reminded me that him and his mum had tried to communicate with solicitors and see about taking the eldest in custody off me to send me home with the baby in my belly. Because God forbid I be a mother to my children. Um, he ended up coming home after a long battle, but that didn't help anything really. And after, I think we were home about a year when I left the relationship, didn't leave the home, I couldn't. And then after that, I met someone else, and I was kind of like seeing them incrementally. I was just woken up fucking sexually. I was on this, spiritually Kundalini, when you're in the spiritual community and this whole Kundalini, this is a whole other thing to talk about. But I was in that space of like awakening, and I was ready to explore myself, and I felt safe enough in myself to be able to give myself a bit of space to be able to go to explore who I was, especially in that way. Now I know different because I've got human design language to communicate things, but at the time, and I needed space. I needed to be loved and not abused and used constantly. I remember when the youngest was 6 weeks old, going down asking him to make me um food because I hadn't eaten in like 2 days, and I breastfed, and the milk was not there, and she had oral restrictions, and she was 6 weeks old. So I asked him to make me food, and he screamed at me for not doing the dishes. Bear in mind, I hadn't had a shower since she was born, you know, and he was screaming at me for not doing the dishes. And God forbid, like, I need some food to be able to keep a child alive that you begging me to have. But okay. Um, Everything mother was shunned, shamed about me, my emotions. It's too emotional, too crazy. When I left, the experience that he had, he was left alone. I used to fuck off every weekend, fucking this guy around in the caravan. It was um, I ended up falling pregnant with the new guy, and it became so unsafe for me in the house that he had to come up and pick me up and bring me to his house. And then I miscarried a couple of days later, and he broke up with me and brought me home Sunday. And that same day, then there's a lot of work I do and education that I do in regards to teaching about spirituality of Ireland and practice. And this day I learned something very massive that led me on a massive grief, traumatic spiral about like truth in the world, and how deep the abuse goes, even in the things that we seek comfort from and the things that we seek relief from and healing from. They're the darkest. uh, and so I ended up uh, in the face of that, uh, leaving the house, and I went to stay with this man he let me stay in his house for 3 weeks while I set myself up somewhere else. And I got a house an hour drive away from the kids, which in Ireland really, albeit isn't that far. And we'd had this like 50-50 split. the house I was renting to buy, which this man helped me get into, and I was going to wanted to turn it into a mother baby home out of system for the mothers of Ireland, and so it's women of Ireland, and leave it in a trust in my care, then in the care of my children, and then it will always be a land for the women of Ireland. Old Irish rainforest, 7 acres. It was just bloody beautiful. Now, Miss Dry Kitchens over here, whose transference is Shores, understands that a mountaintop glass property is probably not the best place for her. You can only hindsight has really shown that. But he I got this is like queuing to the traumatic part because the um landlord got a cash offer in the house, gave me 30 days to raise the money. Mister came back afterwards being kind of on and off. I got back together with Matt, broken up with him again. I tried to give it another go. He was living in the house with me, bear in mind. But all this, the intricacies of these stories is what I share on Instagram. And he came back 2 days before the deadline and said that he would donate the money and had played the hokey cokey for 4 months. And then I had this urge that I was so sick at this point, the internalization and the amplification of everyone's sickness and fear. I had, and of course, I was in my transference environment. So my body urged me and pulled me to where mother began for me, Cornwall. I just knew there was something I needed to go back there for. And one of my clients' children, said client I talked about earlier, helped me by giving me some money to be able to, a lot of money, hell of a lot of money. I had to confront a hell of a lot of stuff in that, to take 3 weeks away. So I did. He was supposed to sign the contracts for the house when I was here, day 5. Day 4, left without saying a word. The exact same day, I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and by 10 o'clock, I texted him and asked, "Can we have a chat?" Because I knew whether the house, it didn't matter about the house. I could not be in a relationship of any kind with him, so I needed to communicate that to him. But he'd gone and he'd left and not said a word. So I had to go home, myself and the children's father, because I'd got so well by myself. 3 weeks by myself, I was like a brand new goddamn person, as I'm sure mechanically you can all probably understand. And I got so well that I was like, right, well, let's just go back here. And he was all for it, right? All for it. Come back to Cornwall and living here. We'd made a plan that I came for 2 weeks. He would go there for 2 weeks, to his mum's house, take the kids to his mum. Hadn't seen her in years. Hadn't seen like the youngest since she was a baby, and she was 3 now. For a 2 week holiday. Well, I came here and got set up, and it's now 2 years later. Literally to the day, actually, of the, yeah, no, not almost to the day. Yeah, to the day. It's literally 2 years to the day that my children were supposed to arrive to me, and they're not here. He kidnapped them. And then when I went up there after a couple of weeks of, I went up there in a crazy urge. Like my body was moving me beyond anything my mind could comprehend, and the emotions that I was experiencing at that time, I honestly looked like a mental woman, but I wasn't. I was so sane. I had dreams that that he was going to do what he did, how he did it as well, even just weeks before. So like I knew it all, you know. But yeah, the last 2 years have been the most traumatic, really. My children. I've been homeless. Yeah,
You've had
yeah,
a wild fucking ride, Nattie.
yeah, yeah,
Which was really what drew me to you. You also have this 1/8 channel, the channel of inspiration, which is truly being able, my husband also has this, and being able to speak your truth and contribute with that. And I think it's just, I'm going to have to put all kinds of fucking trigger warnings on this. But that's just the way it is, you know?
Woman.
Yeah. But what I've understood from your story, correct me if I'm wrong, is that all of these experiences and all of these traumatic, fucking awful stories that have happened in your life have led you to understanding this healthy mothering part.
Yeah,
And that this,
I'll go in the bathroom.
that this is what you teach people.
Yeah, it is. I'm just going to move into the bathroom because I think Nick might need better.
Oh.
But yeah, like how can I, like what I've learned as well, like I have an open ego, right? So with the 21. So I've learned that I'm here to learn about control by being controlled in a way. And I've learned this is what I've learned in experience, right? Healthy control. Control it. And who is supposed to control the trial? if not mother. Right. We put all the control in the context of men and leadership in that way, in masculinity. But how do men lead? How do fathers lead? Based off mother's feelings, based off the partner's feelings. So yeah, I'm not into masculine, feminine crap really anymore. Or we all have it. It's just energy. They're just different ways of explaining energy, different words that you can genderize. Um, and I think it's really quite useful, like the way, like it is useful to go through those spaces of understanding them and giving yourself words and archetypal things to be able to understand them. However, if you're looking at it through that dynamic, men lead by taking action based off the woman's feelings and intuition. It's how they work together. One feeling and intuition, women are not, they're not built to act upon providing structure and foundation around it. That's where the unit works together, and you can have this in any kind of gender. It's like, I have it within myself, like I have masculine, feminine structures within myself, and my masculine structure holds space and listens to my feminine in what I take action of. So yes, I'm a woman, but I still have masculine qualities that I then take action from. But that is based off my intuition and my femininity and those aspects of water in my body. And I think everyone is always like, either men lead or women lead, but you can't. That's not the jigsaw puzzle piece. It's just a big fat fucking jigsaw over here in this world that we all have arm and legs reaching to each other, and we all just have a part to play. My part is no greater than, like I've seen people, just going back, say, like to the master number 33 thing. I've seen people go around with this like spiritual egoism of, oh, I'm a master teacher. No, you're fucking not. What you're actually doing is showing people how not to live their life through arrogance, in a way, and spiritual narcissistic arrogance, which is like, oh, look at me, I'm holding a special because I'm like this. It's like, no, like you're just as bloody brilliant in your individual configuration as I am. It's just different. And one thing that I've noticed about like being a 5-1 is people consistently put me on a pedestal. I'm like, oh my God, she's amazing. She's aware. She's strong. She's this. She's that. And inside, I'm like, I'm just a fucking marshmallow.
Yeah.
It's like I'm a hard chocolate coated marshmallow with a little ball of fire inside her. And sometimes that fire gets loud enough that I just melt into nothingness. It's like, and it's like, one thing I don't understand is the pedestal thing. Cause it's like, we're all just who we are. And it's like, what I see and I love, or I am attracted to in somebody else, I'm only attracted to them attracted to that because I recognize it myself. If I am judging somebody else, if I have distaste about somebody else or despair or whatever, it doesn't matter. What's that teaching me about me? I used to judge people a lot. And one of my early days teachings, or one of the things like I used to like really talk a lot about, was judgment, and how when you judge another, you're just judging that aspect of yourself. But when I judged another, I used that as a tool. I didn't use it as a definition. I changed the way I use it from definition to tool, and the tool being a mirror. How do I, come back? It's like, one thing I know you said there about me being strong, and this is probably the highest accolade that I have in this world, is just the level of sheer strength that I have. But I realized to be strong, you need to be endured. It's endurance, and I can't endure anymore. I'm not in that space of enduring anymore, so I'm just not enduring it.
Yeah.
And this is part of it. This is part of it. To not endure it is to use my goddamn voice. I'm like 8 activations in my throat channel. You reminded me of earlier.
Yeah, you need to speak, girl. Definitely. Get it out. And I think that's so valid though. I mean, we all have our share of trauma and all our, everybody has their story.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I hear you so strongly on that part of being sick and tired of being told you're strong.
Yeah. Do you know how I know that how I know that I'm a good mother and how that I'm a healthy mother? Because just bring it back to that like question that you asked me, was because I doubted it for a while. It's like having all of these things and the anger and every single projection possible at me to like go through that space of not internalizing especially with my closed aura, right? Because while I have night vision in the darkness and I can see everything, when it comes to what people see about me, unless I'm told, I don't know. So if they're telling me a projection, to me, that's someone telling me my impact in another way. So I'm internalizing that, right? Because I can't see what they think about me unless they tell me. So I'm internalizing that my whole life. So I have gone to the point of like, maybe I'm not a healthy mother. Maybe I'm a crazy fucking know-it-all who, whatever, everything anyone's ever said about me. I believed it, every single piece. I've believed it so much more fully than actually who I am, more than who I am. And my children, I had a conversation with them the last time I saw them, which was at Easter. And I asked them, do they know that I love them? Do they have questions about that? What do they think and what do they feel about about this situation and about me not being, in their life as such every day? And they both said no. My youngest said that the only time she feels loved is when she's here with me. She's got an open spleen. We both define it together.
Yeah.
So bless her, she literally only feels safety and love when she's with her mama because she's got that spleen. Which breaks me because she's still only 5 and she's had 2 of those fundamental years without me, you know. But they're not angry with me. They don't experience anger with me at all. They're never angry at me. They don't shout at me. They don't, whatever about them doing it with each other or anywhere else. They don't. They know that I love them and they know that it's not me. And for me as a manifestor mother with closed aura, for my children to be able to feel my love and feel me, that is the only thing that I need to know. And it's only because of me knowing that they know that I'm here doing this now. Because the only people's opinions who will matter on what I say and how I say it is theirs. Because the only people who actually get to experience me, judge me, and define me as a mother are the only people who actually get to experience it fully in physicality, and that was my children. And if they're reflecting back to me this at 5 and 7 after being apart from me for 2 years, then what bloody impact can I have mothering other people?
That's beautiful, Nattie. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
You said something when we were talking about what you wanted to share on this podcast around how human design needs mothering in it.
Yeah.
You want to talk to that point?
Yeah, I actually read a post the other day. I'm pretty sure you shared the blog post. If you would like to share the author of said blog post, the one, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, yes, yes, yeah. HD by, yeah. Okay, I can't remember it, but yes,
We'll have to link that in.
I'll link it in here.
Women's experiences in the HT community, right?
Yes.
That like I haven't had that level of depth of experience because I haven't involved myself in the community that much. I've observed from the outset. At the beginning, when I was involved, I definitely had that experience, mostly with projector men, mostly in Facebook groups. And it's this: if you just take the same structure of father thinking he knows best, and father provides structure, and that's what Ra did. Voice came, voice of mother, brought structure into form. But the only way that the structure can be secure is through mothering. And getting out of the definitions of it and into the flow of emotion, energy in motion of it, and actually looking at the mechanics and the structure through energy, through the mindset of energy. And that it means feeling it and seeing it and not intellectualizing it. Like the intellectualization of human design is what I mean. And that's masculizing. It's fathering, is intellect. And we need to get out of the mind and into the body. So what else does human design need if not mothering? Because what do mothers just is are we getting the point of mothering in this whole fucking nutshell now in every single thing in the world, And there's one thing I've had a couple of conversations with Brighton from Brighton.design about this very briefly because like masculinely I've recognized him in his masculinity in that sense. And just the one thing though that really kind of gets me in the context still of even the most aware and observant and truthfully themselves people within design, because there are a few and we can see them all. there was something missing, and it's just gone missing from my brain.
Masculinity, Brayton. Truth. Okay.
Of the world, right? So if we're looking at human design being the program and the mechanics of the program, which in other words, we could say matrix of the world, the shadow of the world, the not self of the world, the matrix, trick on mother. The English language is a spell. This is a whole other thing that Nattie is also a teacher in language, and not etymology now, but like actual physical translation of language in its spell. And I respell. So you're going to have to remind me again because the point's gone again, because this is a deep one.
Masculinity, femininity, and HD needs mothering in it. Well, I think you circled back to it though pretty well here, because when we're talking about intellectualizing human design, and okay, you got it.
Yeah. Like in right in the sky, right? I've been on this mad initiation over the last few years, totally separate, right? In learning human design, I learned astrology. I was giving readings. I start running workshops like called Astrology and You, like teaching people about astrology. Anyway, one day on my 30th birthday, which was 3 years ago now, just over 3 years ago, 3.5, I saw in the sky that the moon was not where I was told it was, on a full moon, where I was supposed to be running a full moon. Women's circle thing, because that's what I used to do. I mean, when I say I was spiritual, well in the game. And I was like, wait, the moon's not moving. Mm-hmm. So then I stopped learning anything, everything outside, and I watched and I observed me, my pen, my feelings for a year. The sky, myself, and energy. And that's probably why I'm so apt at reading energy, expression, context, humans onto. And then I booked a reading with AKA Claudette, and she is the creator and founder of Sky Astrology. Now, AKA Claudette is her Instagram name, not anything to do with Sky Astrology. Number one. So she's got a lot of impersonators. Yeah. A lot of just her in her own. And ever since I've been observing the sky. And I can see the program. That's point. I can see the program and I can see the real energy of the sky. Right? So it's like one thing that is being left out of the conversation. And so many people try to bring in sidereal human design as more real. We have this thingy. And it's like, no, both exist. Both exist. And sidereal is not an accurate representation of the sky either. It's still a system, its own little program, as is tropical, as is Vedic, as are all of these things. It's not a picture of the sky. In sky astrology, we're not looking at the sky as in a circle with 12 equal parts of the pie. We are looking at the constellations, not the signs that are structured, the constellations in the picture of the sky. We're looking at the planets, their movement, the energetics of that. And there's loads of us all around the world now doing this. Like we've been observing it for years around the world. And what I've noticed in that, the more that I stand in myself in the program, the more I see the program. And as a manifestor, people say that projectors are the most responsible in the world of design. Fuck that. Sorry, trigger warning. I probably should have done that first. No, manifestors create reality. We have the literal, physical, mechanical form to create reality. You would tell me what is goddamn more responsible than that. If we create things, we create things for projectors to learn in. We create things for projectors to guide in. And yes, do they have a responsibility to uphold the integrity of that creation? Damn straight. Yes. But they are not. No, I'm sorry. You can't, like, the world was built on by manifestors. And look at the fucking state of it. Sorry. So do we not have, as manifestors, a grave responsibility to acknowledge what fuck ups every manifestor before us did in creation of this world the way that it is, and to create change that way? We are one of 9% of human beings that have the actual ability to create. And one of my things is I have been creating for other people. Like with the womb room, with everything I do, I create for other people. But what I'm realizing is that we're supposed to create for ourselves. And the way we go wrong is by creating for other people. And that's why we're in the fucked up situation that we are in the world, because the world was created for people to control in.
Yeah.
Not guide in. Any single thing that I do in this world, I'm learning to do it for myself. And if I create something, like in context of the womb room, there was a bit of a mind fuck with this because I was creating it for myself because I needed it for myself.
Mm.
Because I was creating it externally, it didn't work.
Yeah.
Now, over the last year, I haven't been able to be creative. I haven't been able to be artistic with like my canvases and my inks and all the things that I would normally do. I've been doing colouring in books. I've been colouring in books with very nice pens and very ways. People are buying them. Not one person's ever bought. Well, I've had sold one piece of artwork before. I've sold in like 2 days 10 pictures that I coloured in of a colouring in book because it was something that I did for myself. Right? If I'm creating for myself, I'm creating mothering. I'm creating things that have mothering at the forefront. And then that creation's anything I cannot sustain, then I will put projectors in charge of to guide through. You know, it's like it's not about hierarchy. It's about the jigsaw. Back to the jigsaw. How do we hold hands? How do we work with each other? How do we work with what is? I was built this way for a reason. You know, I told you earlier the amount of times I spent crying on the floor because of who I am, right? If I actually the only reason I did that was because of the responsibility that I had in who I was.
Yeah.
Like the impact that I have last generations, I don't get to control that. That's God's hands. Like the arrogance to think that I could even sit on the cry on the floor because, oh, poor me. I was made like this for a reason.
Yep.
And I have a responsibility to be in that, you know, and I think every single manifestor that I meet now, they are so unaware of themselves and the actual ability they have. My best friend is a manifestor, the first woman who ever showed me care in this world. And the whole reason I moved back here and came here was because of her. Right. And she is a dancer. She was a lawyer, dancer. Last year, she's been initiating dance classes, right? Because for her, salsa classes. Last week, I helped her. I went and got helped her buy the alcohol as well for the first social dance party that she was putting on. Like we built a bar, you know, and I haven't really been in the middle. I was there at the beginning and then I was there. I had my own stuff. So obviously I couldn't be there consistently, but I went back to see her party on Saturday. And after a year at like 12 o'clock at night, the place is absolutely full of people dancing, bachata, merengue, salsa. You know, when she began, people would come to the lessons, but they wouldn't be dancing in the socials. They'd just be dancing like normally, like you would in a club. Nobody was like dancing. And I looked and I was like, you come here for a minute. She's like, what is important? I get bloody important. I just need your face. Just turn your face and look at that. And she was like, what? I was like, 1 year, not even a year. Look, you've done it. You know, and the impact that her classes have on people, the impact they had on me, right? Joy in the heaviness. I was experiencing the heaviest times in my life. And I went to one of her dance classes and it was just joy. There was no fear. There was no anxiety. There was before. But as soon as I got into the room, the impact that woman had on me in joy and just being able to live and learn what it means to live and be in my goddamn body, explore where I was stiff, you know, and to see the impact that she has, that her places are now full of people dancing in joy. Like manifestors do not realize how simply they impact. Mm-hmm. You will have no idea the impact of what those people, the full impact of what those people feel in their classes. And I just think like that, if imagine she could take that even bigger and what that could do with the world. And she had more intention in it, more freedom in it, even for herself, like doing it for herself, what that can have. It doesn't matter what your thing is as a manifestor. It's just what is your thing, because that's what you're here to create. There's a thing that we all have. What is it? Create it for yourself, because that's how you impact the world and change the world. Too many people are out there spiritually being like, oh, we're creating a new earth and blah, blah, blah. No, you're not. Mothers are creating the new earth by literally physically giving birth to it and raising them. So if you want to help create a new earth, go support mums, cook them a dinner, take their kids for an hour. So not that she can go for a shower, not that she can have a bath, not that she can go shopping, so that she can go and get her fucking nails done, or she can go and have a dance with her friends, or she can go and do something that she wants to do for herself that does not involve the title. Because she can't be a mother unless she can be herself. But we can't be ourselves because we're too busy being mothers. Left alone in the world, like, oh, you had a baby? Great. Bye. See you later. On your own now. I love how you're nodding.
Yeah. No, I don't live in the same city as my sister. My sister has two sons.
Yeah.
With my godsons. I'm their fairy godmother. She came to me and she was like, "Do you want to be their godmother?" I'm like, "I'm so glad you use those fucking words." Yes, I do. And as often as I can, and when I lived back home too, as often as I can, I was just like, I will take them. I will take them for a full day.
Yeah.
And you go do whatever you want. And I think that is like the biggest gift we can give to mothers. Like you said, just give them that time.
Yeah. And give them a voice as well. I see so many women who are not mothers, maidens on Instagram mothering without ever having sat in the initiation and mothered themselves. And that is how you release trauma, by having somebody who has not sat in the initiation of their own goddamn trauma, which is the initiation of mother, then charging money, currency to release your trauma. What is a lease? It is a contractual loop. This is one of my own inner notices that came out of me that I feel a bit weird putting out in the world. But hey, it's come out, so we're going to trust that. It's come out.
Yep. Bring it on.
Then we'll come back. This is my work. I had this in Veda. I have a boot camp called The Emotional Self, which I talk about the experience of this in. And if you want to take that word and go use it and go share it and go say it, you're just going to do the same God that you're just going to release the spell of the releasing trauma. So if you want to be part of the problem, please take this word and go off with your knowings of what you get from it in this. Or you could come and actually energy exchange with me and learn more. But this is the thing, mothering, right? This thing, what do? You take from others, you take their knowledge, you take their information, and then you regurgitate it in form. The word, like the integrity of the healing space, of the spiritual space, is just not there. Because so many people think that they can mother without being a mother. It's like I wrote a post once, you think you know mother, but do you be mother? Everyone thinks they know mother, but you ask any mother, was mothering what they thought it was before they became a mother, and every single one will tell you no. So if every single mother will tell you that mothering is not what they thought it was before they became a mother, and then everyone who's not mother is going around mothering thinking that they know mother, what does that tell you about the fucked upness of the world? You can't know something unless you are it. You can think that you know it absolutely, but you cannot be it. So it's like, it's sad for so many people who are not mothers to not give mother anything. What they do is they take from her. They take her identity. They take her life. They take her job. They take her children, in my case. And it's not funny at all, but if I don't laugh, I don't know what else I'm going to do.
Yep.
I literally said once that I felt like I was in an episode of The Handmaid's Tale. Right? And I said this to him, and he said, "Oh, don't be sick. That's disgusting." Blah, blah, blah. Right? A week later, I received the statement that was written for this court, this next court case, which was a week later. And point 14 in the statement, he wrote, "While I am grateful to Nattie for the gift of the children that she gave us, I believe I'm a better parent," blah, 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 something of those words. And I was like, I literally said while you were writing the statement, that night vision in the darkness again, that I felt like I was in an episode of The Handmaid's Tale, and then a week later I get a point at this statement that you wrote. You were literally writing while I was talking to you, and you're telling me that I'm sick.
Yeah.
I'm not a commodity. Women are not just commodity. Mothers are not commodities. We're just birthing out babies and then having the rest of the world take. Oh, we're building and creating a new earth and we're changing it. You can't. Unless you're a mother, you physically can't. Because so it's like, again, back to radical self-responsibility. Who are you? What is your piece? And why are you not being your piece? Because the longer that you're doing somebody else's piece, that's not your piece, and not taking responsibility for your piece, you're perpetuating the same fucking bullshit. And everyone's like, let's change the world. And it's like, well, you can't do that without changing yourself into yourself. And who you think you are is definitely going to be not who you are. Who you are manifesting yourself to be and all the things that you're manifesting for your life is bullshit. You can't do that. Unless you're a manifester, you can't manifest. Even we can't manifest the way they tell us they can manifest. I remember reading The Secret. If I hear The Secret, oh my God. If I hear that thing, I remember reading it being like, I can't even do that. And I'm built to create things. And if I can create things from nothing and brand new things, then, and I can't, it's just the narcissism is, this is the thing, like even that word, the word is like so overused, but every single one of us are narcissistic. Every single one of us are walking around with a mask on, being somebody that we're not, pretending that we're not. Mm. Mm. What did fucking 2020 show us if not that?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Natty bombs indeed. Natty fucking bombs. I'm loving this. Would you like to speak more about your 7-step framework for emotional health?
Yeah. So it's only really been over the last 6 months that I've actually like realized that I've developed this through the 7-year process of my own things. But you know, I've always had this inner knowing. My very first session I had with Sky Mama, that's what I call her, Granny Ishka. Sky Mama. The very first question she asked me was, what was it like to have all of these inner knowings and not trust them? Mm-hmm. How did you just describe things that aren't there, that I knew were there, but I didn't know were there? And now, anyway, she akined my chart. The only chart she said she could akin mine to was Nikola Tesla, because of the way that in like taking away what he did in the world, he just basically changed the way that we see energy in simplicity. And she was like, that's also. And so basically, I've got 3 0 degree in my charts. So we've been observing the 0 degree in sky astrology. It's like, it's actually so insane that you could almost think yourself mental. But when you observe something for so long and you see it, you can't unsee it. So my MC is 0 degree Orion. And I'm talking about mathematically correct sky astrology, sky chart, not astrology. With constellation 0 degree Orion, AC 0 degree Virgo horizon, and my south node is 0 degree Cancer. So basically, my south. So it's like it's not as if I'm like my foundation on earth is any. My soul is mother and inner knowings are mother. But I going on my own journey, and like which started off with the trigger awareness questions, right? And this inner knowing that I've had all along that life is not cyclical, it's linear. And in Western astrology, I am a Capricorn. My birthday is the 29th of December. But in the sky, the sun is in Sagittarius on my birthday. It was on the day that I was born and still is. And when I was 22, which is 2 is the number of the womb, I got this arrow tattooed on me that you can see. And I got it to remind myself that I could always hit the spot. And when I found out that I was a Sagittarius, my friend was talking about Sagittarian energy and how it always shoots the arrow and hits the spot. I was like, really? And then when we dived into it further, I don't know if I can show it to you here, but there's my Phoenix. An arrow, right? With a linear process straight back to source. If you go back to source, you've got water, teardrop, but then splits into masculine and feminine. But then splits as 3 dots. Then you've got the infinity loop, right? And above it, over the infinity loops, is the matrix. They look like mother. They look like source. You go round and round the cyclical loop of the merry-go-round in all of the matrix things that are not you or it. But if you just go straight back to source in the linear process, that is life. But over the 7 years, I've realized that it's a spiral. It's not, and then I looked at the work of, I very saw the other day, what was that man's name? He worked with Tesla, ironically. I just found this out the other day. He literally has a whole load of works on literally talking about life and energy being a spiral. That Tesla told him not to release for 1,000 years, but his wife released it after he died because it was too important information. Tesla said humanity couldn't handle it. Where is it? And what's his name? Walter Russell. Okay. Walter Russell. So this is, I don't know if you can see it even here. This is just one of the sheets of his work. I'll send you these if you want to go have a little explore. So for me, I've been looking at life not being linear,
like not life not being cyclical, that's the matrix, but being linear. But what I've learned is linear is not straight line. We have this perception of linear being a straight line, but linear is spiral. Like, so in order to come back to self, you have to go on the spiral 7 times. There's 7 loops of the spiral. So it feels like you're going around in a circle. And sometimes you get caught on one point of the circle and you go around in that loop constantly. You have to go around the circle as many times to get out of it. You have to go through it to step out. And then you go around the circle of the next spiral and you go around in a circle until you step out of it and you go down the spiral. And I won't talk too much about it because in the context of the structure of it, but it is a literal 7-step framework of emotional health, 7 steps on the spiral around to self, back to root source. And then once you're at root source, you spiral outwards then. So you have to spiral into self. And then your spiral out is you. The only thing I hold space for is the spiraling in. And then you are responsible for the spiraling out. Because that's who you are then. You're spiraling out. So instead of living life cyclically, we live spirally. Second word.
It is a world now.
So I'm still trying to figure out what to do with this 7-step framework because, like, what do you do when you've created something that can actually heal humanity? How do you put something out there in the world that is individuation of universalization? Like, people talk about this in human design, that as a 5-1, I'm supposed to universalize my foundation. But has any 5-1 actually ever done that? And if they have, what have they done with it? Because I haven't seen it yet, and I don't know what to do with that. So I'm just figuring it out as I go along. I have a boot camp called the Emotional Self Boot Camp, which I'm doing. I initiated it 2 years ago, and I've had to go on the wave of it. But this is what it will be communicating about, the 7 steps of the spiral. I cannot give you the tools. I can give you the way. What you do with it is yours. You know, I can only model. And most of the time, I have a left angle cross demands too. Also, let's just add. Can we just add that into the mix?
Yes, I have heard that through this whole conversation.
Have you?
That 58 sun is so there for me, at least.
And it's mad because, like, the 52, like, I'm so still in it, and people are like, "Oh, you're mad and chaotic," and it's like, yeah, I know it sounds that, and I know it appears like that. But, like, have I really moved? You're looking at me for this whole time. I know my head twilts and my hand goes a little bit, but I'm not. I'm still, you know. So it's a bit weird to not be chaotic in it anymore. And that's for sure. The 58 inner demands on in chaos is not great. But yeah, I feel like, back to the question about human design as well. Like, I feel like people like learning this stuff about themselves, like going beyond the program. How can you change unless you go beyond the program? And I just haven't seen that in human design yet. And I think that's where the mothering comes into it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm initiating right now in this conversation.
Maybe.
Who knows? Anyway, I feel like a little fear of inadequacy. It's not there. It's not like there, but it is there, right? And rejection, insane right now. That I feel like, I don't feel it right now, but I can feel it building and building and building, because I know that the day that this podcast goes out, I'm going to be sitting there like, someone just take me away from the internet for 4 days, and then I could come back and see the impact of it afterwards or something like that.
Yeah, well, I when you say the fear of rejection, of course, as a manifestor, we have that wound, but also the gate 43. I have the 4323. And so I know that fear of rejection when you're like, I have these fucking insights. I'm getting them out somehow. And I have no idea what I just fucking said.
It's all going to go to shit. I'm going, they're all going to kill me somewhere.
Well, yeah, fifth line. I mean,
I think, like, even in that, like, even in the 7-step framework, it's like, it's just 7 steps that you've got to take in action. It's just 7 an action framework, which have somewhat labels for the different layers of the cycle, and it's like, even going beyond those things, like the rejection, the feeling of inadequacy, but like the fact that I know what that is now, I don't attach to it anymore. And that's the result of the framework. What you're hearing and seeing right now in me being me, it is the result of the framework. And I've seen it impact other people so much. Like people, like, and I'm seeing the framework in other people, like they're learning it. The people who are around me, who know me, they're doing it in the same way. So I'm seeing it, and I'm not even teaching these people. I'm not in spaces with these people. They're like, they're my friends, you know. Um, so I'm excited. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how I'm going to get it out there, but I know that it will go when it's meant to go. I trust that now, that I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm not just going to be like, yo, pay me a load of money and we'll go on a 7-step framework to healing through feeling. Not that one. Not going to be that whatsoever at all. No way. Absolutely no way. But I use the framework. The framework is my life. The framework is how I model. I model it to other people. I can inform you of it. I can give you the words. I can give you the absolute mental comprehension of it in language. But you're not going to understand it until you go through it. And it's only when you're in it, at one point, you're like, oh, okay, now I get it. And that's, and the amount of times that even happens in it as well. It's like, okay, now I get it. And there's like, oh, no, I didn't get that. No, okay, no, I know I didn't get it. Now I get it. I've had people call me, right, about something that I've said to them in it, or about themselves. One person, a projector, she got so mad when I told her that she should probably sleep on her own 3 nights a week and not with her generator boyfriend consistently. And the bitterness I received from that, the projections that I received from that, and then the love I received from that when she actually ended up being forced to spend some nights by herself. And she came back to me, she was like, okay, you're right. And the other day she came and we had like a little vulnerable share, the two of us, and she told me something and I told her something in response. And the next day she comes straight back to me. She's like, okay, you're right. She's like, now when you tell me something, I used to be like, no, whatever, fuck you, you know it all, blah 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 blah, whatever. And now if I say that, and she's like, I'm just going to do what she says straight away because it works every time, and it's like it's only through the informing of my impact on other people that like I get it. Most of my clients are generators. They've been generators, but how I've seen them be themselves now so much, even just from 1 to sessions sometimes, it's crazy. I am in the process with one of my clients of developing over the next 3 years a new medical model of the integrity of radical self-responsibility. So rather than externalizing your responsibility of health to medicine, you are taking responsibility and medicine aids you in doing that. So yeah, that's quite massive. And that's probably where the framework will really come into play a lot. But the emotional self bootcamp that I've initiated, that I'm hoping to, I feel like it's going to be the 20th and 21st of this month. Actually, I'm going to do something, but it's again, like we spoke about at the start, where I normally would be like, have bullet points of what I want to say, but you did that this time. I trusted that my body wasn't pulling me to do that, and then you had done it. I'm not even doing it for this time either, because it's like, it's an experience. It's in person learning experience, and I really need to get, this is what human design has given me such permission for, to stop explaining myself, to stop to just trust that I am someone to experience, And my friend said to me the other day, most of the time I don't know what you're talking about until you finish.
Oh, Nattie.
All right, we're blown now, aren't we?
A little bit. I have absolutely loved this conversation. It's been really interesting to get to know you and hear your experience with this design system and all of the other wonderful experiences you have had. I'm feeling very complete in
me too.
And stuff. Is there anything you would like to end it on? Anything you would like to add?
I would actually, just in that the road of radical self-responsibility is not fluffy. The road of, people look at healing, and a lot of the reasons that we find human design or any system, we are looking to fix ourselves, to explain ourselves, to be ourselves, to whatever, but it's like, you already know who you are, because like even now, today, every single thing that I am, I've known that I am, it's just been a trust within myself. And it's just like, how, in order to get to that point,
there's only one space that we need to go in, and it's not learning, and it's not externalizing, and it's none of that. It's internalizing and feeling the grief and the pain and why you are not it, why you think you're broken, why you think you're not self, why you think something is not what it's supposed to be. Why do you think something's happening to you, not for you? You know, those kind of things. And it's like, that's the one space that we want to go. So we go around this bloody circle of matrix, of spirituality, of teachings, of religions, of all of these things that try and make us feel whole by externalizing. It's like, if you could just give yourself a fucking minute to curl up in a fetal position with a hot water bottle, with a teddy, with your arms around your bloody self, and just hold yourself for a fucking minute. Just 1 minute. That's it. Because once you do that, and then you feel the natural byproduct of health from that, if you give yourself 1 minute, and I don't mean 1 minute of fluffy duffy crying, I mean 1 minute of hard, broken, can't pick yourself up, grief crying, and you feel the natural relief that you feel in your body from that, you'll never look outside of yourself again. If you really give yourself that, you will never look outside yourself again. And every time you are outside, you'll recognize and bring back in, you know, because feel the pain and feel the grief, because this world that we've been brought up in is not fair, it's not right, it's not just, it's not anything that is good or what we can perceive as good. That's the point.
That's a beautiful, beautiful place to end this conversation. Thank you so much, Nattie. Where can people find you? Website, is it Instagram? Tell me all about it.
Just yet, but Facebook, Nattie Marie Flannery with two T's, Nattie Marie, and then FLANNERY, or for everybody else in normal English. And then I am _Nattie_Marie on Instagram.
All right.
From there, let's go. Let's find out together.
I will put this in the show notes so everybody can easily find you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your wisdom.
Thank you for having me. Really, I needed this too, you know, in my own being. Good night.